Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
I'm gonna knock you out. Mama said knock you out. I'm gonna knock you out. Mama said knock you out. I'm gonna knock you out. Oh,
wait. I didn't.
No, it's great.
I ran out of breath. I'm not competitive in beatboxing.
Is that just gonna be it?
It's just
I guess
the other.
so.
Yeah.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Command Zone podcast. You are watching / listening on a device, probably a mobile one, maybe your computer. Who knows? I'm your host, Jimmy Wong.
How's it? It's Josh Lee Kwai, and we are here with a very special guest.
Hey.
We've got our good
you
friend
can do it too.
Yeah.
Kyle Hill,
Hello.
formerly of the Because Science YouTube channel. And, well, you're of a new YouTube channel
Yeah,
now.
you should just Kyle Hill now, doing all the sciencey stuff in a new location, new channel. I'm super excited for all the super nerds to join me there, and I'm so happy to be back with you just after playing with you guys just the other day.
That's
so this
true,
is
that's
awesome.
true.
Right.
Yeah, we'll talk about your new venture here in just a second. But also, the main topic of today's episode, you know, the world of Commander, it's always kind of been a little bit fractured between casual and competitive. I think, you know, within the last few months, maybe that rumbling has grown a little bit. We've had the Thassa's Oracles come out, some
that's a
bannings
whole
and
other
some
thing.
unbannings. Yeah.
About 1,000 threads on Reddit about it, too.
Yeah. So today we are going to... We brought Kyle in because Kyle is very familiar with competitive EDH, cEDH, which we reference on the show a lot, but we don't go in depth about.
Yeah, so I've been dipping my toes kind of into this space, and I started out as a casual player through and through. You know, I started playing Magic back in the late 90s when I was really young, but right around when the first Commander product came out, I think that was 2011, right? That's when Is it?
I don't know.
Was it?
Okay, hold on. Wait, hold on. Before we get into the life story of Kyle.
Oh, sorry.
We are going to pause here and talk about our sponsor, cardkingdom.com/commandzone.
If you want to buy any of those old Commander products.
There you go.
2011.
Segue. If you want to buy cards from when Kyle started playing, which was like 100 years ago, or from cards from right now. So the unsanctioned product just came out. In fact, we just had a Game Nights episode about it. All those silver border cards are super, super fun. Theros Beyond Death is still really, really cool. Maybe you haven't got all those cards. Yep. Korea on the horizon. You probably can't pre-order quite yet, but I'd keep checking that website, cardkingdom.com/commandzone, because you will be able to very, very soon. And when you use our affiliate link, you're doing two things, getting Magic cards, which you're going to do anyway, and supporting all of our content. So it really does help us out a lot.
That's right. The other way to support the show is by purchasing UltraPro products. UltraPro, we use their products in every single episode of Game Nights. They help sleeve our decks. They keep our cards safe and sound because we have a lot of value in our decks, especially when we're getting towards the competitive level.
I only play with UltraPro non-glare Pro Mat sleeves on every deck. I love how they shuffle. I love how they look.
And you got to shuffle a lot with cEDH because you're playing so many games, right?
Well, and also all the tutors.
Yes, there you go. There you go. If you buy UltraPro product, you're also directly supporting the show, so you can pick that up at Card Kingdom or your LGS or a big box retailer.
They really do make the best stuff to protect your stuff. And the last way to support all of our content is directly. If you go to patreon.com/commandzone, you get to do cool things like watch Game Nights before the general public.
Then you'll brag about it.
That's right. You can be like, I knew the ending and nobody else knew. You also get to chat with Jimmy and I on Discord, on our Discord server, depending on what reward tier level you're at. And also, another perk is that we shout out one lucky patron every single episode. And this episode is dedicated to Peter Vase. Peter, you rock. Peter, I'm going to knock you out.
Whoa.
No, just out of a 4-player game. It's fine.
All right, yeah, Kyle, let's talk about really quickly here. Well, let's talk about your new YouTube venture really quick. So you were on Because Science, and now you're starting your own channel. How can people out there find it?
I got a new thing. If you go to youtube.com/Kyle Hill Science or just search my name on YouTube, you can find out what I'm doing. I have a whole new way for you to get involved with all the nerdy things that we usually do, talking about how you could make an optical time machine with a space mirror or put a boxing glove on the end of an arrow and see if it actually would knock someone out. Hence the song. Or even something like, what is a sonic black hole? What is a black hole for sound? So all the same kind of geeky things that were...
Sonic the Hedgehog, but yeah, that too.
Well, if you spun fat. Anyway.
Okay.
So, so we're getting up to all the same geeky stuff, but new place, and because it is fully owned and operated by myself. You can go to the channel and to my own Patreon, which is just my name, and you can get involved and do all the same kind of stuff. Look, I look to you guys for a lot of the Patreon stuff. You guys are doing an awesome job with your community. I want to get in on that game.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing now. I'd hope if you like sciencey stuff, which you probably do, because I think the Venn diagrams for Magic players and sciencey stuff.
I think when we did that Turing machine
the
video
Turing
with
machine
you,
episode,
it really showed that, like,
yeah.
a lot of crossover.
An unbelievable reception for that, and we have a part 2. Well, I want to do a part 2, but we can do that pretty soon. But yeah, check out the channel, the new stuff, and get nerdy with me.
Support Kyle. He puts a lot of work into his videos and his shows.
280 weeks in a row until a couple weeks ago. Video
that's
every
crazy.
week. Yeah,
That's around us. Yeah,
5.5
years. Yeah.
5.5 years, something like that.
No break, though. We've taken a break once or twice. No
break.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we
Kyle's
also
putting
have
us to shame here.
More people to help us.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just my brain.
Okay, let's talk about you and competitive Magic here. Well, okay, let's get into the main topic, which is casual versus competitive. Casual is known to our audience. It's what we generally talk about on the show. Everybody out there should be familiar. Our power scale, that we've talked about a lot, we're usually around the 7s and 8s. Yeah. Kyle, you've really recently gotten a lot more into cEDH, which is more on the 9 and the 10.
Yes.
The very high level.
Ultimate power.
Yeah, so you've gotten into cEDH. Do you want to discuss just sort of your history getting into cEDH and why you like it?
It's funny you asked that because, there was other influences, of course, but y'all were almost directly instrumental in this, so I'm going to blame you.
Oh, for cEDH?
A little bit, because I had just serendipitously pulled a Selvala Heart of the Wilds out of Conspiracy box, just in a pack.
Right.
And it was sitting in my deck box for a long time. Like, why is this a $50 card? And then I brewed like a big, big dumb monsters kind of version of Selvala Heart of the Wilds. It's like, wow, this is really strong. And then I heard an episode of the Command Zone with DJ, I believe, when you were talking about how to build a Selvala deck tech. And DJ was mentioning some other cards you could start to include if you wanted to go high power. Cards like Lupine Prototype or Phyrexian Dreadnought or Phyrexian Soul Gorger basically function as big rituals in that deck that go towards combo, infinite mana, that kind of stuff. Just so happens that those cards are also pretty cheap. So I started tuning up the Selvala deck, and then I tuned it up so much that I was looking online for lists like, how good does this thing get? That led me into cEDH lists and discords. Selvala happens to be a very competitive, very fast list, and from there I kind of dove in. And I want to be really clear, though, I'm a total noob in the cEDH space. I have a few decks that are in the 10 level, but for this episode, because I wanted to get it right, I did talk to people in the cEDH community on their Discord, especially Shaper Savant, who runs the cEDH Discord and is one of the most prolific deck builders out there that there is. So I'm just trying to maybe shed a little bit of light into this chasm of, hey, you're doing that, but I want to do this.
Right. And Jimmy and I have a lot of contact with the cEDH world too, even though we don't play it, obviously, because we are very front-facing Commander players, and a lot of them come to us. Also, I'm on the Commander Advisory Group, so people like the Spike Feeders, and we have a lot of people in our Discord that are patrons of our show that are, cEDH players. And there's a lot of players like you, Kyle, that kind of, I think people think you're either casual or you're competitive. There's a whole bunch of players that do both and kind of bring both kinds of decks on their, their commander nights or whatever.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing that content-wise, too. I mean, just a channel that recently popped up, Casually Competitive.
Yeah.
Which is trying to fuse the two, where it's like, yeah, we're still having fun, but very high power, very fast stuff. So I think there's room for both, but we can get into that.
Yeah, so one thing I want to say before we sort of start the discussion is I feel like there's this thing out there among casuals, because every time we talk about cEDH or competitive EDH, we kind of get yelled at by a certain subsection of our audience.
One or the other, too. It's
well, the
like
cEDH audience will yell at us for talking about, for saying Vidalcan Aura is good or something, because that's not something that is good in cEDH. But
sounds crazy, right?
Yeah, but speaking directly to the casuals who are right now, mad listening to us, being like, oh, they're going to talk about competitive. And
first of all, how dare you?
Uh-oh, Kyle's feeding into the stereotype.
I'm good, at me, it's fine.
So the thing I wanted to say was that I feel like casuals kind of think of competitive EDH or cEDH as this intellectual contagion. If you talk about it,
You might get infected by
then you're going to infect other people, and they're suddenly going to like it. And the casuals don't want a lot of people to like cEDH, and they get mad. They get mad at us when we talk about infinite combos. Don't even talk about the infinite combos. Then no one will know about them, and no one will want to do them. And it's like, that's ridiculous to me. If people like competitive EDH and they hear about it and they decide they like it, then they're playing Magic the way they like it, and that's what they should be doing. Like,
I think really what is being described is a miscommunication, really. I think a lot of these can stem from bad experiences that people have had not being on the same wavelength as their play group, or people they meet at a Command Fest or something like that, or a Magic Fest rather. And when you do get, comboed out turn 3 and you weren't expecting that, there's a lot of feel bads there. But as we will get into a little bit, if you're actually talking with someone and you know what the game is and what the social contract is or not, then I think there's a lot more space to play in it and not feel bad and not be like, oh no, but we don't play land destruction. It's like, well, if we talked about it beforehand, we don't really have to have that discussion there.
A big thing, too, that I find a lot of casuals that get angry about is that casuals can have decks between 1 and 8.
Right.
cEDH decks are between 9 and 10. So if you bring a 2 or 3 to the table and someone has a 6 or a 7, it's going to feel like they're playing a cEDH deck, even if you don't actually know what the term completely means. And that's sort of what this episode is about, too. So it's about helping define the differences between the two and also just to clear the air.
And I think there's kind of a misnomer or some kind of stigma here just going on when we say, like, competitive versus casual.
Right.
Like it has some stigma. Like when I say that, like I'm looking down on you because you don't play the game as seriously. And it's like, no, it's not. This is the same distinction between tabletop Magic and bringing that, to a world championship. There's just a distinction between how you're building your deck and your mindset. It's not I'm better than you. It's not I'm playing better than you or I'm fancier or whatever. I think our word choice is kind of inflecting some kind of bad feelings on it, where I play casual too.
Right.
The majority of my 25 decks are casual. I have 2 that are competitive. So there's a breadth.
The stigma really does come from the feel bad moments when you do play against someone that does something and says, no, you can't do that, you're wrong. And then all of a sudden, instead of being like, oh, they're just a more experienced player, or they're just kind of being a butthole about it, people group that category into they're being competitive, thus they are a competitive EDH player, and then you get into this whole world where no one wants to play with the tryhard or the pub stomper. And again, this episode is trying to clear up those differences so that you can differentiate what a cEDH deck is and why it does what it does, as opposed to just that deck is more powerful or that player is more inconsiderate.
I would say most of the time that label gets thrown out. cEDHer, it's probably not even correct. They probably weren't playing a cEDH deck.
No,
what they did is something you didn't like, but that doesn't immediately make their deck competitive. And so then competitive EDH among casuals becomes a derogatory statement where it really shouldn't be. It's a way that you choose to play the game. So I guess the first talking point we should talk about here is what is competitive EDH? Kyle, you jotted down some points here that we're going to go through. Do you want to start with the first one?
Yeah, so when I was thinking about this, what really makes a competitive deck or competitive mindset different? And to me, competitive means running the most powerful decks possible. There's no budget, there's no social contract, and you prioritize winning. Right. And when I say there's no social contract, I mean, in the context of EDH, you don't have the things like, okay, we generally don't blow up each other's lands or try to stop other people from doing anything. Where in cEDH, if that is a viable win condition, you do it.
Yeah.
And whenever
there's no like nothing's off limits. You just try and win as fast as possible. Now there's some stuff people don't do because it's not likely to win.
Yeah.
But like if you want to mass land destruct, you want to infinite turns, infinite combo of any kind, stacks, counter everything. Yeah,
this is taking the logical extension of, this is a game and there are winners and losers to like, okay, well, let's see who wins this one rather than, let's see what happens in general.
I would almost say that if you played the game and it was almost as though you're playing a computer against a computer, there's no emotional, why would you do that? It's just, hey, I'm going to take the optimal thing to try and win the game as fast as possible. There's no, like the debate back and forth of the, hey, if you don't do this, I'll do this for you. Like, don't attack me. It's just, we're all sitting down trying to win as fast as possible.
Yeah, and again, I feel like maybe we don't hear the other side of this coin often enough, where it's like, there's that politicking like, oh, please don't do this or do that kind of thing. The other side of it and the competitive side is when, someone force of wills your combo piece or something like that, you kind of have to sit back and being like, that was nice. I was gonna win, but you got like there's more like good plays that you can point out and be like, that was really good interaction or that was a really good play,
or just not feel as bad about it happening.
Yeah. Because
Like,
everyone's trying to do the same thing.
everybody's trying to do the same thing. Yeah.
You're not analyzing things on the layer of was that fun?
Right.
It's only on the layer of
was that or was that personal?
Yeah, there's none of that. It's just did that
Is that the optimal play?
Yeah,
for
did that move the game towards somebody winning, hopefully yourself?
If you ever watch competitive Magic 1v1, it's a very
Right.
similar mentality. They're not looking across the table and being like, hey, Paulo, could you like not attack for a turn? I haven't drawn my land yet. There's none of that.
Can you imagine
How
seeing
dare you steal my creature and attack me with it?
Yeah,
Can you imagine Paulo being something like that? Oh, come on! That'd be crazy. Another big part about cEDH, obviously, as you can probably suspect, is speed. Speed is the name of the game, and you can kind of bring this down even to turns. So you guys have mentioned this in your power episode as well. But basically, and I'm talking with the cEDH community, if you aren't prepared to deal with the threat of a win by turn 3, the deck probably isn't competitive. Most of these decks can just goldfish a win on turn 4.
Right.
So if you're going beyond that, the deck edges out of competitive. We can talk about what decks are competitive, but in the metas right now, most of these decks can assemble a win if
They're
there's
at least
no
threatening a win.
yes,
Yeah.
if there's no interaction.
Right. That's what we said, I think, on the episode was what we said before, turn 4 or before.
Yeah.
If you goldfish it and your deck can threaten a win consistently 4 or before, it could be competitive.
Yeah, or-
if it can't do that, I wouldn't call it a 10 on
Yeah.
a 10. And maybe it could be a 9.
Yeah.
But
And that goes into the next point about cEDH decks and how they're different is there's minimized variance. So I know a lot of the I know a lot of the EDH mindset is to, I'm going to put all these crazy spells in there and we'll just see what happens, see with the game. Well, the more competitive mindset is I know what I want to have happen. I enjoy when that happens. And so I'm going to minimize variance as much as possible to make that happen. So because it's a singleton format, the variance that you get in that format is something to be minimized in competitive play,
Yeah, that was
rather
something-
than just like reveled in and, I have no idea what's going to happen. No, I want to know exactly where I'm going.
Not to say that non-competitive decks don't have that as well.
yes, of
Competitive decks is more like redundant. I have like 5 different ways if I get this one thing out, I know it can win in these branches. Sort of like I planned it out already.
But we've told people on this show, one of the best ways to sort of power down your deck is just take tutors out of it. And that is directly inverse to one of the best ways to power up your deck, which is to put more tutors in it. And competitive decks basically run as many tutors that are reasonable that they can because they're trying to do one specific thing. Usually, most competitive decks are going to win in a very specific way, like 90% of the time.
Yeah.
And I liked what you said there, which is variance as a format pillar.
Yeah.
Casuals want the variance for the fun of it.
Yeah.
So they want to lean into the fact that there's variance. They like the variance. The variance makes it more exciting for them, and they
every game could be different.
They revel in the fact that like my deck, it doesn't win. It does different things every time I play it.
I've never seen my deck do that before.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that is fun. Yeah.
Yeah. But competitives actually, what you said, they view the variance as like a hurdle they're trying to overcome, and so the variance is like a puzzle to be solved.
Yeah, exactly. That's the perfect framing. I think rather than saying like, well, I have all the tutors and I'm always going to beat you this way. When you're playing these kinds of games, it is more like, all right, I know I have these 3 win cons, and given all this interaction, I have to figure out this puzzle and play really well to get to that place. So it's more like navigating a labyrinth rather than just being lost in the forest or something.
It's interesting you talk in those ways because if you speak to somebody like very good players, like I know I've had discussions like this with Melissa DeToro, who's one of the best Magic players of all time. She has framed playing Magic in general to her is that way. It's like a puzzle that she's trying to solve. And again, we need to say that like, I don't think either of those directions is right or wrong. There's no right or wrong, right? It's like, I like the variance of the format thing too.
Yeah.
But I understand that like the fact that it's a puzzle that you want to solve and become the most efficient at is what calls to some people, and neither one's right or wrong. Like that's
Yeah, it's just what you deem the most fun.
Yeah.
For some people, the variance is like, hey, there's 3 other commanders around the table that I don't. My deck's really good at dealing with 2 of them, maybe not the 3rd one, and that's the puzzle for them for cEDH.
Yeah, it really is just a mindset too. Like, first.
Yeah. I don't know how many.
Well, you've never been on the podcast before, I
Wait.
keep thinking he said first, but I was like, yeah, because he's been on extra turns and game nights.
I think that was
But
perfect.
It didn't go back on the table, so you did fine.
Yeah,
We'll just
yeah.
pretend it's not down there on your lap. Don't
And-
move. No one will know.
Anyway, I don't know how many times we have to say it, but I'll just say it one last time. Like Josh said, Everyone plays the game however they want, and it's all fine. We're never, ever saying one way is more right than the other. We're just trying to explain differences. Okay.
All right. And so the last sort of point, and it's probably not the last difference, but the last sort of major one we're going to go over here about what makes competitive EDH what it is there's tons of interaction in the format.
Yeah, and more than you're even thinking. And when I say that, like, this is like a deck building challenge. So y'all often bring up your rubric, which is a good rubric. And for most decks, this is like...
You want to say what it is?
Oh, so usually when you're building a commander deck... Casual. 10 ramp spells, 10 card draw spells, or what could be considered card draw spells, 5 board wipes, and 5 targeted removal. That's a general rubric. And when I first started listening to this podcast, I started doing that, and it made my decks better. It's fine. Mm-hmm. But when you look at cEDH lists... It's almost confusing because they're running like 30 to 35 instants.
Yeah.
And the instants may not have any synergy between them. They are just counter, destroy, bounce, counter, things like
bullets,
that. Silver bullets, yes. So
I mean, their win the game package is actually usually pretty small.
Yeah,
it's a bunch of tutors.
Yes.
And then 3 or 4 cards maybe that are going to win you the game, and then everything else is stop my opponents from winning.
Yeah, some really
and
good
get a lot of mana.
Yeah, some really good creatures, some really good enchantments, which we can get into. So, especially in the most powerful colors like green, black, and blue, there is more or less a package of 20 to 25 instants and sorceries that go into all of them.
Yeah.
Because they are just, and that's the minimizing variance again. That is just because they are so good at doing what they do. They're so efficient, so low CMC, whether that be Pact of Negation or Swan Song or Vampiric Tutor or Abrupt Decay, Assassin's Trophy. Those are all in there.
We've often on the show sort of referred to competitive EDH decks as like sometimes closer to legacy decks than they are to casual.
When Ben Bateman was here.
Yeah.
And he plays that format a lot. He built a deck, was it Sig River Cutthroat?
River Guide.
That was in that style.
It was a Canadian Highlander deck.
Yeah,
or it was like a Highlander roulette deck, but yeah.
It had so much interaction. The rest of the table was like, what's going on? It's like counter, destroy, counter.
Yeah. And it ends up being pretty good because he's actually kind of close to a competitive EDH deck, not all the way there, but yeah. So it's funny because... Well, I do have one competitive EDH deck that I rarely play.
We haven't played together yet with that one.
Yeah, but my best, I guess I kind of have a Stax deck, Derevi Stax, which is
that
close.
Your Derevi Stax is pretty impressive, yeah.
But my best, like, sort of 8 that can punch up and play with competitive decks is my Vial Smasher Thrasios deck, because that deck has like 25 single target removal spells. I want to cast instants on other players' turn and trigger Vial Smasher. And so that it doesn't combo out. It's missing that part of the puzzle. Yeah. But what it has is the ways to stop my opponents when they're going off. And so it can at least play. It's not going to like win a lot of games in cEDH, but it doesn't feel like it's not able to compete at all.
Well, and you have made the point on the podcast before. Another competitive distinction is that some win cons and some commanders are just inherently more powerful. And like you're saying with Thrasios and Vial Smasher, that partner pairing can be tuned up to a 10.
Right.
A full 10, whereas something like a Kakusho,
you just never...
That's never going to get to a 10. It could probably get pretty good.
Yeah.
But
it's going to be based more around the cards in the deck than the commander.
Exactly.
Sometimes.
So not all commanders are created equal. Not all win conditions are created equal. You want to look at the color, their CMC, and what I was told by cEDH masters in the community. Also, you want to minimize the number of zones you have to interact with.
That's interesting. Yeah, I remember you put that down on the sheet.
Yeah. So if you have to deal with the command zone and also the graveyard and also your hand, instead of just doing an ETB, like a Thassa's Oracle kind of win or something like that, that's a much better, more concise, more protectable win con. So there's a lot that goes into it. And again, it's more of this puzzle game for me when you're trying to fight around all of these, these arrows coming in at you and you're trying to dodge and weave. And, it's a different kind of mindset, but when you're in it, it feels really good.
All right, let's move on here. We're going to talk a little bit about how competitive is different than casual.
/ serious. I would say it goes casual, serious, and then competitive.
Wait, we're creating a new...
Yes,
I would say
that right now on the podcast.
I was thinking about it. I think between 7 and 8, you take the game... You are a casual player, but you do take the game slightly more seriously because your deck is powerful.
You guys have given me this reputation. So
No,
like
no, no.
I
gave
created that.
yourself
Okay,
this
the
reputation.
But what I was saying is like
We've transmitted it.
my Yarok deck, for example, isn't competitive,
Right.
but it's definitely not casual. It's,
Sure,
it's
if we
pretty-
want to
it's pretty
create
serious.
granularity, which I don't know what that does for everybody. Like,
Yeah.
I think most decks.
I see what you're saying.
I
just
think
think- yeah.
I think most decks like below from 8 to like 5 can play together.
Right. Yeah.
Like your Yarok deck, it's very strong for a casual deck, but it can play with
yeah.
weaker casual decks.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas like what are your cEDH decks? Zavala and
I have 2 cEDH decks. One is Zavala, Heart of the Wilds, and the other is Najeela, the
okay.
Blade Blossom.
Well, Najila, the number 1 I think at the moment or close to it.
She's tier 1, pretty close.
Okay, so Najila cannot play nicely with a 7.
No, it's more like if you
impossible.
start using Najeela herself, it's gonna start getting pretty bad.
If
Yeah.
you play the
Just
deck how it's supposed-
attacking.
Yeah, if you play the deck though, how it's supposed to be, like short of like just not playing certain cards,
Yeah.
like choosing to, like if you just play that deck, it cannot play with a 7.
Oh, even like the first sliver is
Yeah.
hard to play
Right.
nicely.
right. So, but Yarok can.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I just don't feel the need to create another level because
Maybe-
people get this idea that like, oh, well, I'm in casual now, I can't play with the people in the other thing, and I just don't think that's mostly true.
I think the word casual just implies a slightly more of a connotation than someone. Because I would, like, for instance, let's say you sat down with an 8 and you wanted to play powerful commander. I wouldn't say I'm playing casually, right? My deck may be considered casual, but the play style that I'm bringing to it may be closer to competitive, but not fully competitive. I'm
I
not
agree with you
talking
both
three.
because I see there is a distinction, but I don't know if I want to add a distinction.
Yeah, just I don't want to add a layer that we got to refer to
How
now.
about how is cEDH unique? Let's keep going here.
or how is it different than casual? Different than the non
The other,
cEDH?
yeah, non
Yeah, and something I noticed immediately when getting my feet wet here and watching gameplay videos and trying to do it myself is a lot of different mindsets. So one of them is that life totals are an absolute resource. So many reviewers will know of really powerful cards like Necropotence,
Yeah, right.
one of the most powerful cards ever printed. But that is because it's using your life total as a direct resource for card advantage. Now, I think if you're not familiar with how strong that card is, you're like, do I really want to pay like 5 life to refill my hand? You know, I'm already at, 25.
Or
Where-
25 life.
Yeah, exactly. A competitive deck, you will, I'm going to pay 20 life and put 20 aside.
Right.
And it feels bad if you're not considering your life total as a resource. Right. And so because life is a resource, it's really important to pressure that, maybe more so than in casual or serious games, like this battle cruiser style Magic where we all build up our boards for 7 turns and then we do it. No, it's more like if I can chip in damage with a Deathrite Shaman, turn 2, it's worth it because they're going to ad nauseum
Right,
for
and that's just less
for
ad nauseam they can do.
35 life,
See, I think casuals do this too, though. I think they use life as a resource and they understand that. They just maybe don't go quite as all in, but I think in general people understand Necropotence is good and why, and like Treasonous Ogre and stuff like that.
Sure,
Like,
but I very rarely
they
see...
just don't combo out with that stuff. It's different.
I very rarely see people going down to like, I'm going to pay 35 life into this, and
Right.
I'm going
Because
all
that
out.
kind of all in, I'm going to win now mentality is more competitive. I don't think it's
yeah.
because casuals don't understand life as a resource.
Oh, sure.
They're just not generally trying to get to the end of the game on turn 5 if they can. God dang it, I thought I turned that off. Let's just leave it
Always
in. It's
5
fine. Yeah. And my 5 p.m. alarm just gets me every time.
I think, the big difference is that cEDH wins are usually combo based. So
Yes.
it doesn't matter if you're at 1 or at 40, if your opponents are all at
You
1.
can
You're
still
winning.
be just as strong at 1.
Right, but casual decks are not going to combo out. So for them, like, it's not useful to take 30 cards with Necropotence because 30 cards isn't going to do a whole lot more for them than 12 cards
Yeah.
because
Unless they have a
they're
combo
still
win.
not going to find a combo,
Yeah.
right? Because they didn't build their deck to combo out.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
if you did, so yeah, it's interesting. I like what you said though about how pressuring life total can be more important, like pressuring life total earlier can be more important in competitive than in casual because that's just less cards they can draw with Necropotence or less mana they can make with Treasonous Ogre.
Yeah, I don't know about
yeah.
you, but like most of the commander games I play, if you have like Llanowar Elves out or something like that and you don't need it for mana, you'll just pass.
We usually swing now. We used to be in the don't make anybody mad, but we've kind of brought our play group around to like,
Just get the game going.
Just no one's going to hold a grudge for 2. Just
But I know not every playgroup plays like that.
and we used to actually espouse like not doing it because it's not worth making somebody mad for 2 lives.
Just roll a dice.
Now we're like, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
2, 4, 6.
All right. The next point is that conditional, quote unquote, bad cards can actually be good. This is something that we've talked about these cards a lot on our show, and I think these cards are, again, good and casual as well. Reap is one of those cards.
Yeah,
which
you just mentioned.
We just talked about. Carpet of Flowers is one of those cards that we've talked about before. Mystic Remora, another card we've talked about a lot.
I think it's this idea of like, well, what if someone isn't playing Islands for Carpet of Flowers? Or do I have to pay, a cumulative upkeep cost for Mystic Remora? But these cards are so efficient, and most of the games you will play, someone will be playing blue, someone will be playing black for sure. And so you are getting value for very, very low cost. Mystic Remora is 1, and no one will ever pay the 4 to stop you drawing
Doesn't make
a
any
card.
sense.
So
And if you get on turn 1, everyone's going to be probably casting stuff on turn 1.
they're mana rocks.
Yeah.
So even
especially in
if you pay
cEDH.
1 mana to draw 3 or 4 cards, that is nuts. I mean, I will go as far as saying that basically if you're not running Mystic Remora in any blue deck that you have, I would look at it because it is just so efficient for what it does.
I mean, again, I will say it's actually a worse card in casual because in competitive, you play it. Competitive decks have to be able to win by turn 4.
Yes.
So they have to cast a lot of spells on turn 2 and 3.
Yeah, if someone's playing a
Now,
mana
in a casual
crypt,
deck, you could easily play Mystic Remora, and they just don't play anything.
and that's happened, like in Muldrotha deck, where it's like, oh, come on, cast.
Yeah.
But people are playing Mana Dorks or whatever. It's like, come on.
So it's actually, in a funny way, like the card is less good in casual just because of the way that casual plays out. Although, you're right, Mystic Remora is still awesome, and I put it in almost every blue deck. But I understand. All right, the next point is deck building challenges. You said they are interesting and more critical.
Yeah, well, not to say that it's better or anything, but like we were saying about the rubric, there's interesting changes. One being the interaction is so dang high, like 30 instants or so.
Right.
Very low creature counts, depending on the deck. There are decks that are very, very high, like competitive Animar decks run like 40 creatures in them, but that's because that's how Animar works. Another thing, though, is... And this one struck me as weird. There are almost no wraths at all.
Yeah.
And so when I was using your rubric to build, I would be looking for, okay, well, where's I have an extra Wrath of God here, and here's a
Austere Command.
Austere Command, and
It's got to be good.
this exiles everything. This is great. But competitive decks run almost none of them, aside from the they all run Cyclonic Rift because you should be running Cyclonic Rift. But
Well, because it has a 2 CMC mode.
yes,
Yeah.
but if it's like 4 CMC or higher,
It's too expensive.
it's too expensive. Pretty
Especially
much
for a removal spell.
Yeah, pretty much everything in all of these decks is below 4 CMC. If it's above that, it's either a critical combo piece or it's a commander.
Right. We've actually moved on to the next talking point, so I'm just going to highlight it here and you can continue, but it's that the decks have very low mana curves.
Yeah, and we're talking about like average casting cost of like 2. So they're getting off of the ground very, very fast. They don't want or need those turn 7 drop 8 mana cards because they could get to their win conditions with certain number of tutors by turn 3 or 4. So yeah, the average converted mana cost is super exceedingly low, and I think just in general that's something you can look at in your own decks too. Start bringing those costs down, even when it starts feeling like you're cutting some of your pet cards or something like that. On average, I feel like it's a smoother play experience when you have so much interaction and draw and that kind of thing.
What's a pet card if you don't play it most of the time anyway, if it's too expensive? Also, most board
Exactly.
wipes, sorcery speed.
Yes,
Take note.
there is one, I believe, Toxic Deluge is run in most of the black
3 mana.
ones because 3 mana, you can use your life as a resource, as well as one. I remember, Jimmy, you were mentioning like, wow, I've never even seen this card. There's a lot of cards like that in cEDH, like Reap, as you mentioned. Like, wait, what is this card? Another one is Fire Covenant, which you mentioned before. For 3 mana,
In my Greven deck.
Yeah, 3 mana instant speed. You can pay X life to distribute damage among any number of creatures. So you can get like 10 mana dorks if they're all out or they're relying on some critical like Kiki Jiki combo or something like that. It's a really strong card and cards you don't really see in casual play.
Yeah, because casuals in general, we don't want to use our life that way because the game's going to go longer.
Yeah.
This works in cEDH because I'm going to take my life total down to 5, but when it comes back to my turn, I'm going to combo out and win.
Yes.
And so you don't need a Wrath also because they're not going to have time to get enough creatures to attack me down to 0.
But I like feeling that pressure too because it's like, okay, they just ad nauseum down to 1.
Yeah. Can I better
Can we get it? Yeah.
Better do something. All right, here we go.
Can I do
gut
1
shot?
damage?
Oh, man. Can anyone just bolt this guy?
Gut shots. Come on.
Okay, so we've covered what cEDH is, how it's different than casual. We're going to go into the pros and cons of cEDH, the debate part of the great debate episode.
I will be representing the cEDH part.
We're going to talk about what people love,
casuals.
what they hate, what they love to hate about competitive Commander. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a message from our sponsors. Hey, Jimmy.
Yeah, what's up?
Check out what I got in the mail today. It's my monthly delivery of MeUndies.
Dude, I'm actually literally jealous. I was just thinking about restocking soon. But, this is an even better chance to let you all out there know that today's episode is brought to you by MeUndies.
The biggest endorsement we can give to MeUndies is that we both actually wear them, like every single day. They're part of my daily clothing routine, and for good reason, because we do a lot of sitting when we're editing and stuff like that, and these provide maximum comfort.
The reason why they're just so darn comfy is because of the fabric they use. It's called micromodal and is a specialized type of rayon that is incredibly soft, resistant to shrinkage, and is great at moisture wicking.
And that means sweat and liquid move quickly to the fabric's outer surface and dries rapidly. Perfect for underwear and all the different products MeUndies makes.
MeUndies has sizes all the way from extra small to 4XL, and I've been personally wearing them for 3 years now, and I can't tell you enough just how comfortable they are.
So if you haven't tried out MeUndies yet, there's actually a great offer for first-time purchasers. You can get 15% off and free shipping if you just go to MeUndies.com/command.
And that is a 100% satisfaction guarantee. So if you're a first-time purchaser or looking to restock like Josh or myself, head on over to MeUndies.com/command and get in on the action today. All right, we are back to the fascinating discussion of the pros and cons of competitive EDH. This is the time that we're all going to probably raise our voices a little bit, and
I'm coming in hot.
The internet commenters, get your fingers ready on those keyboards because we're going to go pros and cons.
Yeah, you guys have to deal with this a lot more than I would.
We're gonna
Keyboard
try.
cage fighters.
Yeah, was it the armchair enthusiasts?
Yeah.
So we're gonna do.
They've already typed a lot of stuff in all caps, getting mad at us.
Right. At minute 30, you said this. Like, yeah, we did. All right. So we have a lot of pros and cons here. It's gonna be more of a free flow discussion. But let's just get into it with the first pro. And Kyle, since you are on Team cEDH, by the way, I would say all of us are on Team cEDH because I'm also on Team Casual, and I'm also on.
I'm on Team do what you find fun.
Yeah.
Kyle has found cEDH and he enjoys playing it. I'm on Team Kyle should be having fun playing Magic.
Yeah, because I like Kyle and I like Kyle when he has fun.
But I play both.
Yeah, exactly.
So my first.
But still kill him first. Okay.
Yeah.
They always do around here.
The first it's funny, we've trained our play group. It's great.
It is. It is the right decision.
Yeah, they're not wrong.
Threat assessment.
All right, let's talk about the first pro of cEDH, the first upside here that you got down. It's that games are shorter.
Yeah, and I know that sounds kind of simplistic, but
No, it's awesome.
You've all been at the end of a night, and you've been playing for 6 hours, 8 hours, or whatever. Like, okay, I just don't want to go home. Can we jam just a couple more games? cEDH decks are perfect for that. If you are, and we've done this, okay, it's 10 p.m., get your strongest thing out, let's go.
Last game of the night.
If you win in turn 3, shuffle up, let's do it again. You can get. So I think my last time I played, playing with you, with your wonderful play group and all your editors, I think we played 3 games.
Right.
In the same space of time.
Takes about 4 hours maybe, I'd say.
Yeah. In the same space of time, I can play about 15.
Right.
Okay.
And when I play those 15 games, I feel like I'm learning how to pilot my deck better. I'm navigating those puzzles, doing those mental games, and I'm learning about other people's decks, and I'm more engaged a lot of the time. There's not really a whole lot of time where you can take out your phone and check it. Whereas some games...
At any moment, somebody could be winning the game.
Wait, someone is... Yeah. So I feel like sometimes in a lot of games, it's more like, okay, it's turn 7, turn 8, and you're like, what's Twitter doing? But
True.
When you're playing 15 games, learning about your deck and how to play it, I even keep statistics on wins and losses and time spent and stuff like that.
I would say the con to that is that you don't.
There's an app for it.
You don't get to have those big, crazy moments that involve 5 people all casting huge spells that are 6+ CMC. You kind of, you're on the faster side of things, so you do lose that side of it. But again, you might say that is more or just as enthralling as those big plays.
I mean, as a devil's advocate counterpoint, I've seen a lot of people play a lot of games where someone walks by the table and it's like, is that the same game? And they're like, yeah, he board wiped again, and then she removed everything. Like, I don't know if that's necessarily the optimal use of time in some of those cases. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, I would say, because we've talked about a lot on the show, how the length of games in Commander is definitely like a thing that we have to be careful about. And I'm definitely like against certain rules changes or things simply from that will make games longer. And I think we're kind of like, as long as we want games to get, things that are making games shorter, I think are generally good for the format.
Sure.
So I think it is definitely a pro that competitive games are faster like that. It's hard to say that that's worse than slower games. However, there is a point, I think, at which they become more like limited or something, in which case, why am I not just playing limited? And Commander is the space that a lot of people go to have a different experience than that.
Well, fine. Would you consider that our con?
Okay, yeah. So let's... Oh, yeah, there we go.
We really did.
The con we've got down. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, co-host Kyle.
No problem.
So the con we have down is it makes Commander more like the other formats.
Yeah, vintage and legacy and strictly competitive formats, ones that people usually play 1v1. I would say that people say that cEDH isn't in the spirit of what EDH is about, which is about the big, fun, splashy stuff, the huge plays, what Wizards has sort of tended their precons towards.
Yeah.
Commanders that cost 6, 7, 8 mana even sometimes.
Yeah, and I will say I don't have a perfect rebuttal for this. I mean, it does push it towards the play style and the play patterns of other formats. However, I will say that when you're looking for the big splashy plays, the mind's dilation into an Avacyn or something like that, or when I was playing with Kess and he chaos warped my Avacyn and then he shuffled and cut my deck and then I revealed Avacyn, that is awesome. Yeah. I love it. But with a little reframing of your mindset, like I've been saying, you can still get those I can't believe it moments when the stack is 5 spells high and then like, oh wait, do they have the thing? Well, I'll draw a card off the top and it's a force of will. Right. there are still these crazy moments that can all happen in the span of just like one cycle of priority. And those can make the same kinds of stories that people have about the other aspects of the game.
I think Magic inherently has that, right? There's the famous Bonfire of the Dam moment with Brian Kibler in the whatever Pro Tour World Championship something. There's tons of those stories in competitive Magic too.
Yes.
The moments
I think
are going to happen in Magic. But I think, a lot of people play Commander, and I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I'm just saying if this is what they like about it, I understand it, which is that they play Commander because there has been all these cards printed. And... Nyx Bloom Ancient or Avacyn, like you said, or some whatever, 9 mana, 9/9 with Annihilator, and when it enters the battlefield, do something cool. Like that, they just are like,
of Kozilek?
They're just like, I want to play those cards somewhere. And competitive EDH says, no, we're closing the door to those cards too. So it's like, okay, what format can I play those in? I'm just looking around because I thought this was the one. And if it's not, then where am I supposed to go? And so I get that con. Like, I understand why a lot of people who play regular casual Commander don't want to go there.
Yeah, I get it too. I will say there is, within the space of the metas, the decks that are really good, there are a number of different styles to each of them, and some of them are more splashy than others. So you can still again, your point is well taken, but there is still the space there that you can find. Well, I want to be dropping this bomb, or like a Yuriko deck where I want to flip over Draco on the top and do 16 to everyone. I mean, there are still those kinds of big splashy things you can do.
Yeah, I would also argue that competitive EDH is not even close to the majority of players. So in terms of what it's pushing towards, it's pushing a subset of players within a much larger play group towards a more competitive environment, and which is, I think, not going to affect, again, the vast majority of people listening here. You're probably not going to be facing a cEDH deck anytime
soon. It's definitely not. And my background is engineering. I have an engineering degree. And what you do, like if you're building a road and you want to have a sign a certain size so people can see it and make the turn or whatever, you always engineer for like 95% of people.
Right.
You don't engineer for the 5% who have perfect vision or terrible vision.
Right.
So I see like cEDH is a very cool space to play around in if you like it, but I do not advocate for Wizards to specifically, turn towards, that style, or for all of us as a community to turn towards that style, because it really is more like a 5%, 10, 15%, and the majority of people are still playing casually, and that's totally fine.
Okay, let's put a pin in that because I think we're going to come back to it later.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next pro.
This one I
on your
actually
list,
agree
and this
with.
one I think is actually
I like
the
this one.
best one.
This is my strongest point.
Yeah, and this is a great
Yeah.
point. Okay, so you want to go ahead, read.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest pros for cEDH is that everyone is on the same page. And let's just be honest with ourselves. When we go to a new LGS or meeting new people, the first time I came over and met you
At a Magic Fest.
met you guys, or go to Magic Fest, it is hard to communicate with other people sometimes. Some people are very shy. Some people are very extroverted. Some people yell at you like I do. And so it's harder to get on the same wavelength without playing with these people for a month or what have you. What cEDH does is it immediately levels the playing field. You're like, okay, we're playing competitive. We all have 10s. I know that deck. I know that deck.
Even if you don't know it, like, hey, you signed up for this.
Yeah, you sign up for this. There's no feel bads. There's like, Narset Armageddon my lands. All right, shuffle up. Good play. Nice one. There's
no room for, and there's no expectation of like, oh, I can't believe you did that. You're mean.
Yeah, why don't you play
there's
nice?
no quote unquote pub stomping either. When someone comes into a competitive game, if everyone's playing, everyone knows what's going on. If you win, you win. That's just it. The feel bads come from when people aren't on the same page, and I think fundamentally that is a communication problem. I don't really think it's a deck problem or a cEDH problem.
No,
if people were really vocal and listened to your How to Rate Your Deck episode, and you were honest with people, and you wanted to have a good time, then get on the same wavelength. And once you're there, I think cEDH really lends itself to, we all know what we're doing. Let's play the craziest, best games that we can.
I would also note that a pure cEDH player, if we had to say you are a pure cEDH player, you have no interest in taking a power 9, 10 level deck into a 6, 7 field, right? That's not fun for you. The competition is not there. And a lot of people, this point has been made across the internet a lot, but cEDH players are not pub stompers. A pub stomper is someone you would consider that comes in with like a 7 or an 8, or a deck that's just built around being stacks, but not trying to aggressively win on turn 3 or 4, and likes to take it into lower power situations and beat everyone handily. I don't think that is interesting to a real quote-unquote cEDH player.
No, that's just a toxic mindset, really. I mean,
Right, that's not a cEDH player.
No.
That person's not representing cEDH by that action. They are just
No,
a
they're
toxic
just
person.
a toxic player, yeah.
Pub stompers are people who want to make them they want themselves to feel better by making others feel worse, kind of luring people into a situation that they don't fully understand.
Which, by the way, why does that make you feel good? You looked up a deck on the internet, and then you
or
took
a
it
strategy
into,
or something, yeah.
I'm talking to pub stompers here, which are like, yeah, you got something wrong with you because you're just taking it in. You're taking a deck. You're taking a bazooka into a battle with a bunch of people who have Nerf bats, and why does that even make you feel good?
Well, let me ask you this question, maybe because I don't want to blow this out of proportion either.
Yeah.
Have you encountered many?
It's very rare. I'll be honest.
I will also say it is a very rare thing. It's not. This isn't a pandemic where it's like we got to stop all these people. This is a rare thing.
I would say it's the one that we hear the most about because it does affect the people around the table much more.
I think that's confirmation bias, where it's like that affected me that one time so much. I'm always going to remember it and forget every other time when it didn't happen.
That's just more of a traumatic experience.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's happened to me where a guy sat down. He's like, "Don't worry about this," and then he blew me out. I was like, "What?"
There are like actually honest reasons for it to happen too, because I've been in at least a game or two where I realized that I was the problem.
Yes, that's happened.
Where I'm like, oh crap, we talked and everything, but my idea of a 7 was just what they would probably call a 9, and I'm like, my deck is just way too strong for what they're doing, and you're in a weird spot there because if you pull your punches, like that can be really demeaning and be seen as like condescending towards people.
Yeah, I've had bad experiences with that too.
Yeah, so listen, I think that's a downfall of the format a little bit in the way that the casuals play it. We're trading that in for some upside as far as being able to play a bunch of cards that you couldn't play anywhere else, and we're kind of having to navigate this thing. But I agree that like cEDH having the feature of That's just not there. We just don't have to worry about it. Everyone just plays as hard as they can, and we don't have to worry if, are you exactly on target with what I'm on target with? It doesn't
what are you
matter.
playing, Najila? I'm playing Godo. We both know what's about to happen here. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Or that makes sense. Or like people don't consider stacks to be a 9 out of 10.
No.
You know, people might consider stacks to be that's on the lower side of cEDH.
It's more again, it's more of a puzzle. It's like if you're playing like a Derevi stacks or something like that, it's like, okay, well, I'm very heavily creature based. I'm going to have to figure this out. You know?
Right. I do think the point is worth making one more time really quickly, which is not conflating cEDH players with pub stompers.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there is a tendency, I think, out there among the casuals to just call anybody whose deck is too powerful in your pod, and, you know, it doesn't seem like they were giving everybody a fair chance to have fun, to just say, that's cEDHer. That's not really very fair. They're a pub stomper. They're probably toxic. Maybe they're like me, though, in those situations, which was kind of an accident. Maybe you should give some people a break sometimes, too. But
the best people who are doing that will also say that. Where
Yeah.
you're like,
Right.
oh,
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, or like, should I... You know,
yeah,
should I like...
it's fine. Maybe I should just concede.
Should I
like,
go
what
out?
do you want me to do?
Yeah, you don't want to ruin someone's day.
But I don't think labeling them as cEDHers and making it pejorative to just call somebody that they're competitive EDH player.
I want to flip it around, be like, dude, that deck is competitive.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
cEDH, again, trying to win on turn 3 or 4. Just because they have a lot of, you know, stacks-based things doesn't mean it is trying to win on turn 3 or 4. So I would not consider that cEDH.
Just because they have a mana crypt doesn't mean, but I mean, but a lot of times it does.
Okay. All right, let's go to a con of cEDH.
Of Tarkir.
This is an interesting one, Kyle, because you're a frugal man.
I'm a very frugal man.
And this can apply to a lot of decks, but I think in general this applies a little bit more to the
People
cEDH
tend to
side.
complain about us and our content because Jimmy and I have large collections. We've been around for a long time. And so,
Dude, I looked at my TCG player history and I saw that I was buying mana vaults when they were $3 and I only bought one.
you're like,
And
why did I like 20?
Why didn't I buy out all of Wisconsin?
Well,
hate it.
that's how it is when you look back at any form of investment. Anyway, the con is cEDH costs a lot of money.
This is inarguable. If you are trying to play the most powerful version of a commander deck,
You're going to need duels.
you are going to need dual lands. You're going to need all the best tours. You're going to need the Mox Mana Crypt. You are going to need Mox Diamond,
Vault.
a foil
Demonic Tutor.
foil Imperial Seal,
Force of Will.
Wait.
Mana Drain.
Why are we saying
Wait,
foil?
foil.
They're about the same cost.
Yeah, that is
They're
true.
actually the
that's
same
true,
cost.
that's true. All right.
So that is inarguable. It does cost a lot of money if you are at the tippity top. Like,
In the same way that a legacy or vintage deck
Yeah,
can cost
I mean,
a lot. Same idea, same concept.
are there budget replacements for Time Twister? Yes. Are they as good as Time Twister? No. So if you wanted the 100% power, it's just going to cost a lot of money. That being said, what the cEDH community is really good at is that in almost every primer, in every tapped out list or wherever you're looking at it, in every Discord, there are budget versions of everything, and everyone is super helpful and really kind of keen on trying to find these replacements, where you'll see posts like, oh, you know, this would be a perfect replacement for this, or this can do an impression of that. You know, I see commons and uncommons filling slots where you think it may not be the best. You know, like there's word going around that like a green Dark Confidant with Okame Adversary, because it has a 2/3 death touch, you can get it in for less than 4 mana, and when it deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. So when you're in green, you're like, well, someone's probably going to be playing black. I can get it in for 2. No one's going to block it. It has death touch. Draw a card. You know, there are fun budget replacements for almost everything. Some of these 100% decks cost between $3,000 and $7,000. I'm not going to lie, but the budget versions can come way down to
And a
like
lot of that is like,
to like what
okay.
you were saying in your stats episode, like 500
Yeah.
or 700, which is on the high end, but you know.
Well, I mean, we found that once you got to 500, it was diminishing returns how much budget helped you at that point. You
Yeah.
did like $300 decks were definitely at a disadvantage of 500, but $700 decks did not have basically any advantage over 500.
I will say though that data is in context of your other data, because
Right.
when everyone is playing competitive, I would guess that the 700 versus the 7,000 is a huge difference.
Probably, yeah.
I think
and there definitely was a difference.
there's different regimes, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, there definitely was a difference between like that magnitude.
Yeah, 10 times the amount.
Yeah, because that's just generally not how you're going to be playing
Yes.
if you're in a group and somebody's got $7,000 decks, you're probably not there with your pre-con.
No.
So you're
yes.
probably not. But definitely, like, the world is big. A lot of people play Commander, so some people are in that situation. But
and again, you can have a $7,000 deck that is a Power 5.
it's definitely true.
Yeah.
can,
So
yeah.
don't. Yeah.
It's all
Just 'cause you have
Feldegriff
a-
tribal.
Just because you have a Bayou doesn't mean it's a competitive EDH. All right.
true.
This is potentially, this next point is one that you put down.
Yeah.
And it's potentially our most contentious point. So
Okay,
I'll let you
yeah.
go ahead and read
I don't want to say this too adversarially, but
Just lean into it, Kyle. You don't care if you get added.
it's true. I don't.
Yeah. You're supposed to be the devil's advocate.
Here's Kyle's quote.
So okay.
In the notes, it was,
read it.
with so much interaction and decision making, you can almost feel yourself becoming a better player. And as the pro, and I wrote this down, pro of cEDH.
I say it's a pro.
Okay, go ahead, read it then.
So I think cEDH play makes you a better player in general.
Okay.
I threw my paper like I was mad that he said that.
You know why?
Why? I was mad that he said that.
So for me personally, a light can be shown on a lot of things that you are doing that are maybe misplays or inefficient if you're trying to be competitive. Inefficient or maybe not the optimal thing. And when you are trying to pilot a deck, as perfectly as possible, and you're trying to have tons of interaction, there is, just simply put, more interaction points and more interaction at competitive level. And so when you have to start doing that constantly, at least for me, it makes me a better player because I know I'm starting to have these new decision-making points that could make a big difference. Like, when do you crack a fetch land? Sometimes it super, super matters. For example, the difference between cracking a fetch land, just, playing it, crack, shock in or whatever, sure, you go, versus I'm going to wait to see if anyone has a vampiric tutor.
Right.
And then cracking it on their end step to see if you can shuffle that back in. I mean, there's just more decision-making points. And for me, because of the puzzle aspect to it, it opens up more avenues for decision-making, and it makes me feel like I'm being a better player. Not to say that it will make you a better player or that cEDH players are better. That's just not the case in all cases. But I think when you start taxing yourself and like, okay, well, this and this and that, and should I counter this or should I? I mean, you always say that counterspells are maybe the hardest cards to play. And when you're running 15 sometimes, those decisions are really hard to make. And so I think you get better at decision making.
Yeah, I would argue that those decisions are very specific. Right?
Yeah.
Like the whole fetch thing, I would say 99% of the time in casual play, it just doesn't matter.
Sure.
So cEDH makes you better in those very tight edge case scenarios where, yes, every single decision does have a much larger impact. In the same way that if you guys watched Worlds, there's two mono red decks facing off against each other a bunch of times, and they would just sit there for minutes trying to figure out what to do because every single little move
Trying
mattered.
to think like 3 or 4 turns ahead.
That, I think, is something that is intriguing for cEDH players and probably just not really within the realm of what a lot of people consider fun, I think, on the more casual side of things.
Fair.
I mean, my counterpoint would be that, yes, you're becoming a better at cEDH.
Right.
It doesn't make you a better Magic player. Because I played Limited with you, Kyle, and you're horrible at it.
That is true.
Where a lot of people would...
That is good. Hey, I feel seen. You got me. Yes, I play competitive.
I tried to get him to listen to Limited Resources and Lords of Limited so that he can draft with us. Listen,
I'm a terrible limited player. I think because I just don't play it, but I am bad at it.
And what I'm saying is, like, because skills don't translate one for one across formats like that, it's like
Absolutely
saying that
right.
playing football makes you a better football player. It doesn't make you necessarily a better athlete than somebody who plays basketball.
Right.
And so that's why I think exercising different muscles, like politics is such a huge part of casual Commander, and that's a skill you're not practicing very much in cEDH. So does playing cEDH make you better at politics? No. Well, I need that in casual Commander. So all of a sudden, that's a skill I'm not getting. So am I becoming a better Magic player? No, I'm becoming a better cEDH player. And that's fine.
Fair enough.
Because there are different things emphasized in cEDH than are in casual, but that doesn't make you a better Magic player.
Maybe by virtue, a good cEDH player is also better at Vintage or Legacy than your
things that are closer.
Sure,
yeah,
I would.
yeah.
You got me. But I would say that it's probably very evident that there is some skill bleed over each way, though. Like,
maybe it's not 100%.
It's not. It's definitely not 100%. But thinking about the kinds of things that you need to be competitive does
just like
definitely bleed down into your casual deck building and stuff like that.
All the time on our show, we will reference Limited and Draft as a reason why we've kind of come to conclusions or learned certain things. And it's a different format, but that doesn't mean there's no bleed over. So, but I don't think that any more than limited makes me a better commander player, does competitive EDH make me a better Magic player? Sorry, I meant Magic player the first time around too. So you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
cEDH,
I think they emphasize, they flex different muscles. They work different muscles. And so I don't think it's fair to say.
Well, okay, then my counterpoint is if you flex both of those muscles, you're going to get even stronger.
Holy moly, flex them all.
Flex them all.
So play casual and competitive.
That's
There
what,
you go.
at
Well,
least
That's
try.
that's what Kyle wants you to do.
I mean, I think a lot
Get
of us,
swole, baby.
like Jimmy and I, we play limited as our competitive outlet.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's why.
Yeah, and you
maybe-
guys crushed me in that.
and that's why maybe competitive EDH is not something that we gravitate towards.
Sure, because you're scratching that itch already.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
For Commander, what I want to get out of it is like the yucks with the friends, and I do want to lean back from the
yeah.
table.
Oh,
and
yeah.
not,
Fair enough, yeah.
And limited is where I'm like, nope, I'm going to kill you as fast as possible. There's no social contract.
Yeah, so
There's
maybe
no-
that's why I lean a little bit
And you
more
have
on the
both.
other side. Yeah.
you play both kinds of Commander, and then you're able to scratch
Okay.
both.
Yeah.
I would argue that there are times that my limited experience has made me a worse commander player because I might make an impulsive decision being like, well, I got to remove that right now instead of holding up an answer or whatever. So there's a lot to be said here. But I do agree that I think we can all agree that playing a format will make you better at that specific format. And we're considering competitive EDH to almost be its own format within Commander.
Yeah.
I think it really is. I guess that wasn't clear. That's a good point to make. Which in my brain, they're almost separate. I mean, we'll talk about
The
the,
best
implications of like rules and stuff at the end here.
Yeah, I mean there is the difference between like the tier 0 deck in cEDH and any 8 is huge. It's a huge goal. It's like
Tier 0 being the best deck in
Yes,
cEDH,
yeah.
by the way.
All right. We got a few more pros and cons. This next one is interesting that you put down, Kyle. It's
I
a
don't know.
pro of cEDH is you get to add that top end to your collection.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is more of a. I know you guys are big into the bling stuff. For me personally,
He is. I'm less so. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're frugal
Me and
people.
DJ.
And yeah.
It's not that I'm frugal. It's just
Okay,
that
I'm a frugal
I'd rather build like another deck. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I have the dual problem, I guess.
I just go, why not build 2 Bling decks? All right.
I like that you can add that top end to your collection. I like having the, I don't really build below like a 7, but I have that 7 to 10 range. So if
can build anything.
if I'm going anywhere and playing with anyone at any LGS, any Magic Fest, anything like that, I can play with anyone. It's like, oh, do you have a deck that could do this? Sure. Or you could hand a friend like, oh, I'm gonna go play competitive. You want my casual deck to play with those people? So there have been times. I'm just trying to minimize the amount of time where it's like, oh, hey, we're grabbing this kind of game. Do you want to join in? It's like,
I can't. Yeah.
I can't. So money and stuff aside,
It's why I have one cEDH deck.
in
I
case
barely
there's those
ever
people.
play it, but it's for the exact same reasons on the other side, maybe. Where it's like I've been at places where they're like, we want to do competitive, and I had to say no for so long that I was like, I'm going to build one so that I can say yes.
Yeah, I just like to have the full spectrum. So whatever I'm doing, I know I get to play Magic.
To your earlier point, though, I'm very bad at playing it because I never play it, so I can.
Theory is
Maybe you're going to have to...
Yeah.
I didn't pick an easy one either.
no,
So yeah.
no, and there is harder ones.
There's a lot of lines.
There's literally a 20-page primer on how the Gitrog monster combo works.
Get Rockets. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
All right. Let's not get bogged down in those weeds.
Bogged down in the swamp
Bogged
monster.
Down in the swamp. All right.
Okay.
You did it.
Yeah, I did.
We did.
All right. The next pro here you have listed down is that you get to play with the best and strongest cards.
Yeah.
So okay,
We get in trouble when we say better and best.
powerful. Let's go with
You
powerful.
get to play with some of the most powerful cards printed in Magic.
Yeah, and again, if you can't afford it, if you have a big collection, you can even proxy. A lot of play groups are fine with, they know you want to try out a deck or something like that. Sure, print a proxy of a $500 card. It's fine.
Definitely
that's fine.
try it out before you buy
buy
it.
it.
Definitely, yeah.
Try it
sure.
before you buy it.
I've had a deck that was 100 cards were proxies. It's like,
to
I
make
just
sure-
want to try it. I don't want to buy all
Because what
this
if you
stuff.
go, it's not that fun?
Which
Yeah.
happened.
Yes.
Which happened, and then
So
I
you're
saved
glad-
myself a lot of money.
Yeah.
So if you're like me and you never had a big collection and you're pretty frugal, I've never had that experience of like, what's it? I mean, and this is like a Magic player thing, I guess, but I never had that feeling of like casting a mana drain,
Right.
or playing a mana crypt, or
It's glorious.
or playing an Imperial Seal. There is a certain feeling that
Sure.
comes with knowing you're playing like this crazy powerful card.
The legendary card
The
from
legendary card, yeah, exactly. And there's some,
It's like why people play powered cubes. Like
Yeah.
you get to cast Black freaking Lotus.
yeah, there's some
Yeah.
je ne sais quoi to it where
Yeah.
like, I cast this, whoa, so I like having that feeling where for the longest time I hadn't, It was more like, yeah, Rampaging Baloths is cool, but
Some people might feel the same way about a 7-mana enchantment on the other side of things. So, I think it is really personal taste here.
Sure.
Because I do enjoy both sides of it. I love landing that Mind's Dilation because it's going to do work, but I also love being able to mana drain someone out of their...
Yeah, maybe it's a
existence.
personal thing with, just growing up with Magic. I got my first pre-constructed deck, I think is when Spikes came out. Oh, that's why I'm a Spike. We just figured it out. It was when it's when Spike Feeder came out. Oh my! I'm having an insight. But it's when the Spikes came out. It was like 1998, 99. So I've grown up with Magic my whole life, and seeing these legendary, cards, and just having them built up in my head and never having one. So dipping my toe into cEDH and finally playing a Force of Will or what have you. I don't know. There's something to it. It does it for me. It scratches an itch there.
Yeah, I had written down a counterpoint here, which was that, best is a tough word because some people think like the best spell is Mind's Dilation or Sunbird's Invocation or some 7-mana
or Regeneration because it looks like me.
Yeah, or Avacyn or whatever. It does look like
some big thing.
But you convinced me. There is a quality to casting the sort of legendary cards from our game. We can't play Black Lotus obviously, but
Gaia's Cradle type thing.
Yeah, the mana drains and the big cards that like.
I mean, but that's your point. If Black Lotus was legal.
It would be sweet to cast.
The feeling of playing it and putting it down, everyone's like, whoa, like there's something immaterial to that. It just feels
If you ever play
powerful.
Powered Cube, it is. There's something about like there's a Mox in the pack. You take the Mox. You have a Mox in your deck. You cast Mox.
Wow.
It's just not something you do every day. I think that quality because mana drain for me doesn't fit that bill anymore because I've cast it enough times that.
But I've never had one. I only got one recently, and still to me, it's like
I'm just saying. I think it's fleeting. I think that quality is actually fleeting. I think the more you do it, the less. Like if you had if Moxes were legal, well, some of them are, but if the Power 9 Moxes were legal and you had one in your deck, it would be awesome to play it the first few times, and after that, you would get used to it.
Yeah, for me, that comes into play when I get to play an Alpha Lightning Bolt. The card itself is just old and legendary and has the feel, but it's not necessarily powerful.
No,
so I think there are
enough.
a lot of ways to get your satisfaction in this realm.
Yeah, if I could play Mizarel from those days, I would. Or Mirozel. What was it?
I don't know.
We don't know.
He was a big fish who is terrible. He had 2/3 flying. If he's a target of spell or
Gurmag
ability,
Angler.
return him to your hand. It's imprinted in my mind.
I don't know, but somebody out there is going to put it in the comments.
It's a card.
Somebody's.
It's a card.
All right, let's go to the last con on the list. And this was one I put down, which is less deck diversity. So what we're talking about here is like competitive EDH. You have to have low mana curves. There's a whole bunch of cards that you can't even play, like Wraths and things, anything over 5 mana. Also, we didn't talk about this yet, but we can mention it here. Like competitive decks fall into basically 2 categories, combo or stacks.
More or less, yeah.
So there's no Voltron, there's no like token decks, there's no Super Friends decks, there might be aspects of some of the things, but
there are archetypes within each kind of paradigm, but it broadly falls into you're comboing out or you're trying to stop people from comboing before you do.
And to your point earlier, you said, which is true, it's when we mentioned like they look kind of like legacy decks. There's a certain package of cards that are in most of them, 20 to 25, maybe 30 cards. If you're playing, Sultai colors, there's going to be certain cards that are just in all of them. This is this means less format diversity. There's no combat damage really wins at all.
Yeah,
in
only a few decks do combat damage. Najila does.
It's more of a solved format. It's not 100% solved.
No.
But there's less. Well, I just think that deck diversity is a thing that a lot of people do like about
You're
formats.
absolutely right. I mean, like we said, if you're playing Sultai, there is 20 to 25 instant sorceries that go in all of them, regardless of what it's trying to do.
People get mad that Soul Ring exists because they're like, I only have 99 cards to play with. So, it's cEDH. If you're thinking that cEDH, probably not for you because you're like, you're really only playing with like 40 cards.
Yeah.
Maybe,
there's a lot of very common shells that go around to different decks. And again, it's about, trying to play the best cards the most optimally. But you're right, there is less, single card diversity in a lot of these decks. But, that's not what they're really going for.
You did have a point, though, a counterpoint here that I thought was interesting, which is that like with an established meta, there is maybe more excitement over being able to shift that meta. And so the ability within cEDH to, experiment is still there. It's not like there's none.
Absolutely.
It's not like there's none. And so maybe you get a little bit more of a thrill being able to shift the entirety of the meta. Like there's not a casual commander deck that can really come out. Well, that's maybe not true. Like there's a card. Like if a Traxxas comes out, it'll shift to the casual meta. But there's not a build that Jimmy or I are going to invent tomorrow that's going to shift the way everybody builds deck.
And that is a big excitement, especially in the community, you know, on all their discords and stuff like that. If someone or a group of someone's happen to come up with a new line, a new combo, a new interaction, it can ripple throughout the whole community and like, oh, now everyone
has to react to that.
We have to react to it. We all got to do it. This happened with Thassa's Oracle, which made waves in the cEDH community because it's basically replacing Labman and it's basic Laboratory Maniac.
Improved the deck, right?
Yes.
It hyper powered it.
You talked about it a lot. You can watch their episode talking about Thassa's Oracle, but it basically gave a new line to the most and fastest and most efficient combo win there is with Protean Hulk and Flash. And so...
Fish Hulk now it's called, I believe.
Fish Hulk, Sushi Hulk, right. Oracle Hulk. But when that card was printed, rippled out. So decks started to be like...
out before it was printed.
Yeah. So now decks, even like 5-color decks like Najila or something like that, is like, oh, can we fit a Flash Hulk package into this? Will that work? Will this line work?
So it's just so good. Right?
Yeah, so there's still a lot of shifting, and that's kind of the thrill, right? If you're the person who can like come up with some way of doing something, some meta buster, something, you're like, that was me who did that. Like my contribution is known to the people, to the community. Oh yeah, Shaper Savant made that deck, or blah blah. You know, Siggy from Laboratory Maniacs did that, or you know. So there's some glory to be had in doing that kind of stuff. Where in casual, it's like, which is still fine. You know, it's like, oh, I decided to put this in Muldrotha. Be like, okay, cool.
Yeah, that was fun when you did that.
Yeah.
Grave Titan is good. I agree.
Okay. That's going to do it for our pros and cons. Before we move on to the next little talking point here, I did want to ask you, because I'm just curious.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with our discussion exactly, but what are the current best decks in cEDH?
Yeah, so it fluctuates, of course, but oddly enough, unlike any other commander format or way of playing, the best deck is kind of inarguable. It is a single deck. It is a Tymna and Thrasios pairing. And that Tymna and Thrasios pairing runs the Thassa's Oracle line, like we were talking about, a Fish Hulk, if you will. And because of its colors, it has all 4 except for red, because Tymna is immediate card advantage and it's low CMC, because Thrasios can at any time go infinite and win.
Make infinite mana, you win.
It just has the best lines, the best colors, the lowest CMC, the most card advantage. It is the best deck.
Can we not say the best colors like that?
That's redless.
Yeah. I mean,
He's like, oh, come on,
There's some competitive stuff with red.
Thank you. Najila.
All right.
Yeah, but below that, there is still a lot of wiggle room. There's a lot of different tiers, as the community would call them. There's First Sliver, Najila, Gitrog, Kenrith. These are all slightly below. And then there's another tier below that has... I'd say 9.5s to 10s, where it's still fun, but it's not the tippity top. Basically, the partner pairs make up the majority of the best decks, and then you can have things like, you know...
go down the list from there.
Like my Selvala deck is in that lower tier.
I wanted to make the point because people hear us talk about decks like this, like that's the top deck, and I think they frame it wrong in their mind, which is like, there's still a bunch of decks that on any given game couldn't beat that deck.
Yes, and if the meta adjusts accordingly, it can absolutely be beaten and handily beaten, but in a vacuum.
Yeah. It has the highest chance to win, but it's not 100%.
With no, like we said, for these decks, with no interaction.
Yeah,
this thing is going to be crazy consistent. In fact, well, we can get to this when you talk about the ban stuff, but...
Okay. Real quickly, so I think there's this idea out there, we mentioned it earlier, that you got to be casual or competitive. There's definitely been... I feel like there's a growing rift between the competitive people and the casual people. A lot
perceived even.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Is there even a growing rift, do you think, Kyle? Is there anything that sort of needs to be fixed between those two communities? Can we fix it if there is? Like, what do you think about all this?
Aside from the communication issue, which I think is the root of a lot of feel bads and why people have these personal, like, emotional reactions to stuff, because something, you know, annoying or bad happened to them, and I get it, but I think it's a communication issue. Aside from that, I mean, what would you call me? Would you call me a casual or a competitive player? Or
I think you play with a competitive mindset, and your decks
I think you're a competitive player that
win.
can play that will play casual.
Yeah.
I don't see a whole lot of rift there. To me, it seems
fine.
it seems like a spectrum of playstyle.
For us, we know.
Yeah.
And it's fine. And I've been doing this for a long time openly, which is like, I know Kyle's got strong decks. I'm not mad about it. I just know, like, try and counter the first thing he does or try and slow him down early somehow. And then everything's fine. And if I don't get mad. I get what I get, right? Like, it's like, I didn't do that. He won. He kicked my butt. Like,
Well,
it's fine.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, and in that instance, it's not a rift. If we both know what's happening, if we're both agreeing on, I play with the kind of decks I want to play. You and are we on the same wavelength with this? And then we do what we do. I think it's a reactionary thing, like you said, Jimmy, where it's like you have one or two bad experiences, or someone plays a card that you don't agree with or something. You're like, you are this, and I don't like you, and now you're in that group.
Well, I think at the end of the day, everyone has invested time, money, and effort into building their decks, as well as transportation, wherever it is to get to where they are. They don't have a chance to play all the time. So as a result, if you have a bad experience after doing all that's like going to Disneyland and being like, it wasn't as fun as I wanted it to be. It's like, well, unfortunately, sometimes it's not going to be what exactly you expect, but don't take that experience to apply it to the whole.
Yeah, I think really, talk to each other and give each other the benefit of the doubt. We all want to play a fun game, and I think that kind of sorts a lot of stuff out.
I think also make room in your brain for the fact that, like, just because a deck had a really good showing in one game doesn't really mean a lot.
Oh, yeah, people adjust real quick.
Well, not just that. Like, you could just have a good draw, and a deck can just have a really good game and blow everybody out, and that doesn't mean the person lied about how powerful their deck is. It could just be, like, that's just what happens.
And they will often say that, like, wow, that never happens.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
sorry.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, Cassius may be the perfect example of this. Sometimes I get a turn 3 Ugin out, and everyone's like, whoa, it's the most powerful thing ever. Other times he hasn't put enough lands in his deck, and he doesn't draw them. So it's like, it doesn't always end up being that.
But if you only catch one game with that person, a lot of people walk away and just automatically be like, well, that person's a jerk. They lied about their power level. Give them a benefit of the doubt.
But that's a lot of people's interactions at a Magic Fest or a store. If you only have one interaction with people, you should really make sure that you're talking to each other so you don't have that.
But it can still happen even if you've talked, and that's my point, which is like, don't automatically just jump to that person lied about their deck or their deck's way more powerful.
Yeah.
It's very, very probably could be like they just had a good draw. They had a god draw that hand. It's fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that there's anything bad about them. Play another game with them. If it happens 8 times in a row, sure.
Or 2 times, or if I can read it on your face. Because I look.
All right, well, I just want to touch on this. We're just kind of hitting competitive EDH talking points now in no particular order because we've got you here, Kyle, and we're close to the subject. Right around the time Thassa's Oracle came out, we talked about this. You mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
There was a lot of hullabaloo around the cEDH community. I wanted to ask, that obviously panned out how everyone feared.
Yes.
Is that true?
Because
the fear was Thassa's Oracle is going to ruin competitive EDH. It will make one deck that everyone will have to play.
So
and it'll become a one-deck
format.
Yeah, exactly, Jimmy. Right now, it is the boogeyman of the format. And when I talked with members of the community, I mean, what they will say is, A, it is theoretically the best deck because of Thassa's Oracle now. Mm-hmm. But B, when metas adjust, they can make sure it's not as much of a boogeyman. So
we don't know yet if it's a one-deck format?
Well, see, now from my perspective, I'm just speaking personally, not from the community. What I see is that every single deck who can run the colors and the line for Flash, Thassa's Oracle, Protean Hulk, is now doing it. Mm-hmm. Where it is becoming the win condition. If you can play it, you play it full stop, if it's going to work. So it is proliferating into, like, I play 5-color Najeela, which is mostly like, try to get an infinite combo with attack steps. Now, there's a archetype called Layered Najeela, where it's like, well, it's 5-color. We can fit a Flash Hulk package in there. So it is reducing kind of the flavor, in my opinion. And I will say, on the most viewed deck list for the Thrasios Tymna pairing, the Fish Hulk, the Sushi Hulk, at the bottom it says, in big, bold letters, it says, the creators of this list
unanimously
think that the rules committee should ban Flash.
Well,
That's the biggest thing on the deck list.
should they?
Yeah, that's the thing.
So I know you're too close to this, but if
I'm not that close to it.
Yeah.
well, there's some skin in the game. What I will say personally is that I don't think Flash should be banned if it's only affecting, like, engineering thinking again. If it's only really affecting
see.
5% of
Player
Magic
base.
as a whole.
This is the sign. Make it just big enough for 95%.
Yeah, it's hard to make that argument.
Do you think cEDH should have its own ban list then?
What I will say is that I think if the Flash Hulk package, those kind of cards start making it out into the wider Magic community, I think it's a much stronger argument. I know that the arguments for banning it in the community competitively are pretty strong, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, this deck, and it's the boogeyman," but from an outside perspective, I think it's hard to legislate things that are going to affect a minority of people.
A vast minority.
A vast minority of people when it's not the overall goal of the format and the players who are playing that format.
see.
So I think if the card starts making it out into casual groups where you're running into it wouldn't be an 8 anymore, but if you run into, an 8 Mildrotha deck that's starting to run Flash Hulk packages and stuff like that, you're like...
It could conceivably be an 8 if it had no tutors to find it, so it would just have to naturally draw the right stuff.
But still, then you have that feel bad where it's like, well, I thought you were playing an 8, and you're just like, I play one card. Do you have any interaction? No, I win.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, what? So if it starts making it out, the argument gets stronger. I see their point, but I don't know if you can do anything about it.
I mean, it's never going to make it out.
Just now.
Casuals, we're not going to play Flash. It's not like we...
Flash's
and
Oracle
Hulk
could be a thing.
Flash and Hulk revolves around 3 other cards in the deck too. So now you're giving up 5 slots to make this work,
Well,
right?
this was why Protean Hulk was banned in the first place.
Yeah.
Right.
And yeah, it's interesting. Obviously,
I see both sides.
Yeah. If you were on the rules committee tomorrow, just you, on the rules committee tomorrow... and they called, hear ye, we're having a vote.
What's your vote?
And they said, do you think Flash should be banned? What do you vote? I'm gonna knock you.
I think
I'm gonna ban you out.
I think since this was from the latest set.
Right.
I think we do need to see time to see if metas can shift enough to deal with it.
Yeah.
And it like Wizards does. And if it simply cannot deal with it, and if there's a way to track this, but Wizards does the same thing with competitive decks.
Right.
If the majority of decks run this thing and it wins, more than 50% of the time if you have it, then I think yes, you ban it. But right now I would not, because it's been what, a month? 2 months? Since January.
Not even.
Yeah, it's been a month. So
with about 3 months of online
the internet and Reddit and Twitter tend to amplify things beyond what is actually representative of people. So I'd say we need more time.
Okay.
I need more. Go to the next Magic Fest and go to
I think that's
the competitive tables and see what's happening.
Yeah.
You just got kicked out of the cEDH community. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry we did that to you.
Hey, man, I only know you for a little bit anyway. It's cool.
One last point I wanted to make, because as we were sort of formulating this episode, and you and I were talking, and Jimmy, and we were sort of coming up with the talking points and what we were going to say and how we were going to have this debate, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Yes, it's clickbaity. Yeah.
Too bad. That's how this system works.
Yeah.
How do you think all this happens?
I kept thinking of this anecdote in my head, which is because I grew up playing a lot of basketball, and there are basically 2 ways to play basketball. You go to the gym, and there's just some people on the court, and maybe you've come with some friends, maybe you haven't, and you just play what we call pickup basketball. There's no ref, there's no clock. You just play, you call your own fouls. There's no free throws. Like, everybody's familiar with pickup basketball that's been in and around a gym at all.
Yeah.
Then there's organized basketball.
Yeah.
And organized basketball has a ref, has a clock. You have to substitute players in a certain way. You got uniforms. They call fouls. You shoot free throws. They even do the baskets a little differently. In pickup basketball, it's usually 1s and 2s. So if you're out of the 3-point line, it's actually a 2-pointer. That's broken, by the way. Should shoot only 2s. But regular organized basketball, because they have free throws, will have 1s, 2s, and 3s. But this is very similar to me in that you can be both, right? I played organized basketball. I played pickup basketball. in pickup basketball, there's a lot more social interaction. You're going to try and just like everyone's there to have fun. So if one guy's going to hog the ball the whole time, you don't want to play with that guy and you won't like him and everybody will be mad. Whereas in organized basketball, generally there's a tournament structure of some kind. You're trying to win games. You will get it to your best player. You'll try and get your best player open. They will shoot a way higher percentage shots and handle the ball more than most people because the goal in those cases is to win.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of understood. You might have a defensive stopper. Nobody really does that in pickup basketball. And so I just thought it was really interesting that like competitive EDH and regular EDH are not having a problem that no one's ever had before. Games have had this problem before.
And I don't even know if it's a problem. You know, something that like Jimmy and I do, we rock climb occasionally. And, you know, rock climbing is so diverse in skill and how seriously you want to take it that it's something you could take a first date to if neither of you have ever climbed before and you can have a great time.
Yeah.
You can also be a world champion athlete and be sponsored by Red Bull.
Right.
So like if you want to play competitively, if you want to get in the competitive scene, great, good for you. You're doing that thing. You can have fun with it. But it's a spectrum rather than a rift. You know, you can work up to it, you can nudge up against it, you can tip your toe into it, but it's really what is the most fun for you. And you can do either as long as you're being communicative with the people you're playing with and you're being, you know, good-hearted and just trying to have fun playing this game. It's a game.
And I think that's the big takeaway here, which is like you would never look at organized basketball players and be like, they're a bunch of jerks. They're just trying to win. And you would never look at pickup basketball players and say they're just inherently worse than the other basketball players.
I can't believe that he dunked on me. How dare he be 7'7"?
You should make the rim higher.
But somehow in our space, we tend to have sometimes people that have that type of outlook. And I find that like just switching the game to another game that's very similar and looking at it makes it, you sort of realize how ridiculous it is. And of course, we're going to get yelled at because
just know what kind of
intellectual contagion.
Just know what kind of court you're on.
Yeah, just talking about it, of course, is influencing the community in the wrong way and all that, and it's all ridiculous.
Think about it this way. I want to go play a pickup game of basketball. I just bought my new shoes, got a ball that's inflated, may not be the regular size, and I go in and the court is filled with ex-pros. I'm not going to go play with them. I'm going to go
yeah,
there
you're
and
totally
going to
play. Because if Magic Johnson's going to pass you the ball one time, you're going to be stoked.
True.
That situation has happened to me
I'm not
before.
walking in and being
Not
like,
Magic.
I'm going to mess with these guys. I'm going to show them what's up. It's like clearly, and they communicated with their body size and the fact that they're Magic Johnson.
Magic Johnson?
Magic the Gathering
Magic
Johnson?
the Gathering Johnson?
We did it.
We did
it.
That's why you came here today.
All right.
Hiya.
To the listeners, what do you think about competitive EDH, cEDH? Have you tried it? What do you think the rules committee should be doing in regards to balancing the format for more competitive players? Do you agree with Kyle? And Jimmy and I also have the same thought, which is, you know, the engineering thing, or make the sign the right size for 95%?
If it was 50-50, it's a stronger argument. But if it's 90-10,
it's a little bit tougher.
Yeah.
But interested to hear everybody's thoughts out there and their experiences with competitive EDH. Hopefully we've opened some people's eyes on both sides.
Please don't yell at us.
Of the aisle.
All right.
Yeah,
Say that to me.
yell at me.
Yeah.
Yell at Kyle.
Yeah, I don't
please.
care.
He's letting you yell.
Give me them hate subs.
If you want
Does that exist?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you want to power up your decks in mean and unmean and regular and competitive ways, well, in fact, there's one place you can go to do all of that. You can make your decks less powerful or more powerful.
Right.
It's true.
By
You
checking
take out your tutors, you need new cards to put in their place.
Exactly.
Something's got to fill that sleeve.
Yeah, more of a dog can always. All right, it's cardkingdom.com/commandzone. That's our affiliate link. By using that link, you directly support this show, and you can buy your Magic singles, sealed products, and more. Everything that you need. Board games, too. Heck, maybe you're too tired of losing the competitive decks. Just play some Settlers of Catan instead. You can get that at cardkingdom.com/commandzone.
And, you know, even if you buy one of these other games, they usually have cards.
Yeah, they do.
And you don't want those to get banged up. In fact, it's almost worse if a single card gets banged up in like your board game.
Yeah, it's irreplaceable.
Yeah, you have to buy the whole freaking box again.
They don't sell little replacements.
Yeah, they don't usually sell singles. For some games they do, but not all of them.
Yeah, not all of them.
So you should protect all that stuff with UltraPro product. If you put that into a nice Eclipse sleeve, if you make sure you play on playmats so that your cards aren't getting scuffed up, they're not getting dirty.
Totally.
Of course, UltraPro has Satin Tower deck boxes to really keep your entire decks not just...
I got 10 of them.
Yeah, not just safe, but they also like are compact, so you can pack a bunch with you if you're going to like a Magic Fest or something.
And then you can get harassed by the TSA.
Which is always fun.
True, but at least it's easy to open, and you know when you close it, it's going to be nice and secure.
Magnets, baby. How do they work?
UltraPro definitely makes the best stuff to protect your stuff. All right, Kyle. Now it's time for the end step where we talk about something cool outside the world of Magic.
Tell us.
Do you pass priority?
I pass priority.
All right, it's to the end step. It's
Okay.
my end step.
Yeah.
All right, so
Your
let me
end step.
go to the,
Now he's gonna combo off.
no, let me go to the let me clean up. So in the last couple of weeks, there's been a couple of changes. So now I have a new channel. It's not Because Science. It's a new channel where I will be posting all of my nerdy videos, doing all of my nerdy stuff. If you've liked anything that I've done over the last few years, 5.5 years doing science communication stuff, nerdy stuff, if you like any of that, I would encourage you to join me there.
Even if you haven't seen Kyle's videos, I mean, it's
Yeah, they're great. I
it's
love them.
conceivable that there's a few people out there, maybe Kyle, that this is their first introduction
sure.
to you. Do you want to just go through what your channel is
yeah.
going to be for, for those people?
Sure, I
And there
would-
are papers everywhere. Right?
Yeah, I've been throwing them.
Okay.
3 people, 9 sheets, or 12 sheets. That's what
Yeah,
you get.
so if you want it in a nutshell, I was once described by someone on Twitter as Millennial Bill Nye with depression. So that gives you a pretty clear idea of what I'm about. Science Thor, I've also heard.
Science Thor, I like that one.
Science Thor. Although I think I'm going to do a Geralt of Rivia kind of look now.
Oh,
Because I think Thor's
Science
in the,
Geralt.
Science Geralt.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you've never seen me or heard me before, what I do is try to get to the science in your everyday life, the science in your pop culture, everything, the world around us is wondrous. And what I want to do is, if you haven't had the opportunity to have like a wonderful teacher throughout your life, I've been very fortunate to have really, really fantastic teachers at every level of my education. And I feel almost morally obligated. If I can be a good teacher for anyone, I should be a good teacher for you. So what I'm trying to do on this new channel, which is just youtube.com/Kyle Hill Science, what I'm trying to do is introduce you to basic and very fascinating scientific concepts, theories, sci-fi stuff where you can hopefully take away something interesting. You've learned at least one thing for the day, and it has a new little spin on it. I'm the administrator at the facility, a vast underground complex where we learn many nerdy things together.
Nice.
And you can join me there at the facility. It's look, I'm not gonna lie. Just the upkeep on this place, the HVAC cost is nuts.
Yeah.
It's millions of dollars a year, but
and
it's
a
great.
lot of green screen, right?
And what?
What?
You don't know anything about video production. It's a huge
Massive underground
facility
Kyle's been building it for 6 years.
for years. And now that I've escaped the void, I'm back at the facility, and you can join me there on Patreon, on YouTube, everywhere. If you've seen my show at all, please join me in this new place. I'm going to need all your help. And if you do come and help me, that's going to ensure that I can join these boys for more videos in the near future. Ooh,
Indeed.
For sure.
We'll have all the links, of course, in the more info box below, or you can just Google or YouTube Kyle Hill. It's exactly how it sounds, and you'll find him.
Kai Hi, the science guy.
Kai High, the science.
Sure.
That's right. That's the hill you're dying
Kyle
on.
Hill Science will get it done.
Yeah,
Let me
Kyle
ask
Hill
you really
Science.
quick here.
There you go.
At the time they're watching this, your channel will have just launched, and I think you'll have one video out.
Yes.
Can you tease that video for us?
I hate to break it to you guys.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
But you've never seen anything in the present. Everything you've ever seen is in the
Right,
past.
right.
There's a light delay. Light takes time to travel, and your brain takes time to process that light. So everything you've ever seen is in the past.
It's all been
It
buffered.
kind of throws out free will. I mean, we definitely don't have it
Oh.
because of that, but that's another topic. So, because light takes some time to travel, when you look in something like a mirror, you're seeing yourself as you were like nanoseconds ago.
Right.
But if that's the case, what if theoretically you moved a mirror out a light year in space? Could you see yourself in the deep past? Could you use a space mirror as an optical time machine?
To see yourself in the past. I see what you mean.
Oh, yes. See your past self in the mirror.
I
of
do this
yourself.
all the time. I just watch our old videos.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could use a camera, but I'm talking about space mirrors because they're cool.
Does that mean we have to do this podcast again?
Yes, I
Okay.
want to go back and don't look at any of my stuff from like 5 years ago. I look like a little boy, like a Justin Bieber, but like worse. If that's possible, I don't like the mustache now.
Okay.
All right. Makes sense.
Oh, are you guys not up on all this?
Make sure you all check out Kyle Hill's mustache. Google him, YouTube him.
Use
Again,
your space mirror.
use your
Yeah.
Space Mirror. We also talk with him constantly on Twitter. You can find them on all of those under sci_file.
Thank you so much. I cannot wait to be back. I want to be back on game nights.
We'll get it done.
Yeah.
For sure. You're pretty close, so
Yeah.
we can figure it out. All right. Special thanks to our editing, graphics, and logistics team, which is Craig Blanchett, Ashlyn Rose, Lady Danger, Manson Lung, Alfred Estaca, Josh Murphy, Jake Boss, and Sam Waldo. Have no idea which of that team is going to be cutting this specific episode.
I don't know if y'all know that at home, but I'm not affiliated with their team. They have a huge team here. It is fantastic how much content they get out. There's like 6 people over there doing stuff right now just for you. So go on their Patreon and give them stuff.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
We already plugged it. We don't have to plug it.
Yeah. We are still.
The production quality here.
We're constantly down
Look
the person,
look
though.
on other places on YouTube. Does it look like this? Nah.
We haven't found Sam Waldo in years. We're not sure where he's at. Anyway, big thanks always to Geoffrey Palmer, who provides the living card animations behind us here on set, as well as starting and ending our episodes at youtube.com/the Command Zone podcast. And you can appreciate Geoffrey by finding him on Twitter at livingcardsmtg. And we always appreciate Kyle.
I didn't tell Kyle to say any of
He
that.
did. No, I did.
There's another piece of paper underneath that's just like, it's got like a picture
Plug
of
our stuff or else, Kyle.
It's got like a skull and bones on it, too.
Do you know how many other channels just have lights? None of them.
One more for the road?
Thanks for watching.
Yeah,
Bye.
we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Thank you for your attention. For further inquiries, send an email to commandcast@rocketjump.com or ask us on Twitter @JFWong and @JoshLeeQuai. See you later, alligator.
Greetings, humans.